Next up on the series, we have the Los Angeles Clippers. The Los Angeles Clippers were coming off a 50-32 record in 2024-25, a year where they ended up losing to Denver in Game 7 of the first round. They came surging into the playoffs, especially when Kawhi returned, and a lot of people had them as the favorite that round. I picked them as beating Denver that round, but ultimately they did end up losing in 7. Then the Clippers got busy in the offseason. They ended up re-signing Nick Batum and extending James Harden. In the draft, they selected Yannick Niederhauser with the 30th pick in the first round, as well as Kobe Sanders, who they took in the second round after acquiring his pick via trade. Following up that, in free agency, they brought in Chris Paul, Brook Lopez, and Bradley Beal, and only ended up losing Amir Coffey. But the biggest news of the offseason is when they traded away Norman Powell in a 3-team deal that brought them in John Collins. A move that had people confused because Norman Powell was coming off that incredible year he had before. I thought they would keep him around, try and build him and James Harden and Kawhi Leonard there. But they ultimately ended up shipping him off to try and bring in some more front court depth. The Clippers were coming into the year looking like a top team in the West with their newly rebuilt core to go along with their big three. It was definitely a year of championship aspirations for this organization, and many of the media and the fans thought that too. This was clearly shown by the fact that they were coming in at number 6 in the preseason power rankings. Despite all those aspirations, the season started out going completely different than they had originally planned. Ended up going 6-19 in the first 25 games, and it was looking scary for the league as the Thunder held their first round pick. A lot of people became Clippers fans during this time because who the hell wanted the Thunder to get a top pick in the draft this year? During this time, the team was looking like it was just Kawhi and James Harden versus the world every single game. And Kawhi ended up missing 10 of those games in the first 25. That absolutely did not help. Both were playing at an all-star level, but there wasn't really any support for the rest of the team. Zubac wasn't looking like the Zubac from the year prior. Statistically, he'd taken a step back, which was expected with the arrival of John Collins and having Kawhi back full time. But he was also not impacting the game defensively as he had before. He just wasn't really contributing to winning basketball during this time. As for the role players, it also wasn't great. Derrick Jones Jr. ended up going down after only 13 games and missed an extended period of time. This was a huge hit to their defense, as well as to their three-point shooting and sometimes even their pick-and-roll offense. Bradley Beal, who was a 6th man of the year favorite going into the year, went down for the entire season after an abysmal 6-game stretch. John Collins was looking like he still needed some time to get comfortable with the system and try to figure things out. And Chris Paul got dismissed from the team on December 3rd. This was after a lot came out about locker room issues and him butting heads with Tyronn Lue, but he was getting very low minutes in the 16 games that he did play. During this time, Ty Lue was trying any and everything to get as creative as he could to figure out something that would work with the lineups. And we ended up seeing big minutes from Kobe Sanders and Jordan Miller. They absolutely delivered when they were asked to, and both showed off an ability to play a 3-and-D role. At the same time, they did provide some of their own unique skill sets. Kobe Sanders was showing off an ability to run some relief point guard minutes at times, and Jordan Miller showed his ability to attack the hoop strong, draw fouls, and finish through contact. All of this led up to December 20th, where they were sitting at a 6-21 record, when Tyronn Lue challenged the team to start stringing together some wins and say that they needed to go 35-20 to get into a playoff spot by the end of the season. And that definitely set the tone for the rest of the year, but it was not going to be easy. Luckily for them, during this time, John Collins really came alive. He was providing scoring, rebounding, and defensive impact alongside the big three they had, and led to many big wins during the stretch. He looked incredible. Definitely was playing his best stretch of basketball during this time. Going into the deadline, they were sitting at 23-27, which means they had went 17-6 since Coach Lue's comments, but that did not stop the front office from really getting busy. They started with trading away James Harden to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Darius Garland and a 2026 second-round pick. This kind of took everyone by surprise, as James had been very vocal about his commitment to the franchise and how he wanted to be there long-term. But they ended up bringing in a youthful all-star point guard who had been struggling with injuries this season in Cleveland. Wasn't really on the court too much, but is very widely known to be a guy that can contribute to the game in a very positive way. The next big move was trading away Kobe Brown and Ivica Zubac to the Indiana Pacers for Isaiah Jackson, Benedict Mathurin, a 2026 first-round pick that was protected, a 2028 second-round draft pick, and a 2029 first-round draft pick. This brought in more youth and was giving them an opportunity to get back in the first round of the draft this year. They ended up going 19-13 post-deadline to finish at 42-40, good for 9th in the West, and during this stretch we saw continued excellent play from Kawhi and John Collins, as well as the new additions Benedict Mathurin and Darius Garland. Darius Garland not so much, but when he was able to play, he performed very well. Benedict Mathurin looked like an incredibly different player in LA. His shooting was less streaky. He was contributing to wins time and time again. He was coming off the bench for most of it, but he was putting up big games, 30 points, 35 points. And he just looked more revived as a player. Looked like he felt more free, more comfortable, just more relaxed overall. And these two helped out tremendously in the second half of the season. Unfortunately for the Clippers, they ended up losing the first game of the play-in to the Warriors, which ended their season there. Some guys that I want to mention that I haven't talked about yet, the first one being Chris Dunn. He really came alive this year and has started to become one of the league's premier defensive guards. And on top of that, he took an offensive jump this year. He was given more responsibilities as a point guard, especially down the second half of the season, was playmaking and looking to create shots for himself and others. I really like the development from Chris Dunn, especially being a former top 4 pick. He's really found a home here in LA. The last guy is Yannick Konan Niederhauser, their first round pick. In the time without Zubac, he looked like a young big that the Clippers are going to be able to develop into their starting big of the future. Kind of more like a role-playing big, like a defensive anchored kind of big, but definitely a guy that could be a starting big in this league. It was really unfortunate to see that his season got cut short with that injury because he was looking really good in his time there. Now into the biggest part of the Clippers this season, the offseason. I know there's all that stuff about the Kawhi Leonard punishment with him taking money from the endorsements deals. I'm just going to move forward with their offseason like that isn't going to happen. I mean, we honestly don't know what's going to happen. There hasn't been much talk about it since the start of the year when it got found out that he was taking those large sums of money from the owner there. But the Clippers' entire offseason comes down to one question. Do they keep rebuilding around Kawhi, or do they finally start over? Right now, the ownership and front office seem committed to keeping him around, but there's been a ton of rumors about him being shopped around the league in the trade market, specifically to the Warriors a lot. I just see a lot of Warriors media on my timeline that might be more Warriors media side pushed, but I have seen a lot of stuff about Kawhi Leonard being shipped even to the Pistons. There's been talks of him going there. The Clippers started their offseason with a massive shock as they ended up landing the 5th overall pick in the draft. This was after the Pacers fell out of the range where the pick did convey to LA, and I believe they go after Keaton Wagley here to provide some size to pair with Darius Garland. He's not the best defender to pair with a guy like Garland, but he provides size and length to go along with his incredible ability to score the ball and be a primary ball handler. We saw a ton of that this last season in Illinois. He's putting up big scoring numbers. The team relied on him heavily, especially in their run through March Madness. Definitely a guy that can come in and take some of that offensive ball handling load off of Darius Garland. I think he's the guy they go after here at number 5. But ultimately, this pick could completely shape the franchise's direction. They could either use it as a trade asset to bring in a big time name in the offseason, or they could use it to find the centerpiece of the rebuild if the team decides to move on from the Kawhi era. If they ultimately do decide to stay competitive and keep Kawhi around, the plan is likely going to be minor roster tweaks instead of the major ones. Veterans like Nick Batum, Brook Lopez, and Bogdan Bogdanovic would still be expected to fill rotational roles. They'd most likely be coming back in minimum contracts, but they could also serve as a trade salary piece. Bradley Beal's a guy that would be expected to pick up his player option, especially after an injury-riddled season, whereas a guy like John Collins, his future is way less certain because his market value may exceed what the Clippers want to pay in unrestricted free agency. He had a great year that definitely bumped up his market a little bit, so I can see a world where the Clippers don't want to get in a bidding war and he could end up somewhere else entirely. The Clippers also have an important decision on what they want to do with their guy like Benedict Mathurin. He is entering restricted free agency. They could extend him, but teams are going to throw offer sheets at him. I think he's a guy, if they want to go in a rebuild, they kind of got to keep him around. Be a 6-man spark plug off the bench there. He's shown he can play that role many times, both in Indiana and here. So I think it'd be silly to let him kind of walk away. Try and get him locked down early. The other young guys include like Jordan Miller, Kobe Sanders, Cam Christie, and Chris Dunn. I say young talking about Chris Dunn. He's a little bit older now, but they all look likely to stick around just because of their contracts and production. The Clippers are stuck between maximizing what's left of the Kawhi Leonard era with these smaller win-now moves, or using their young players, their cap flexibility, and their top 5 pick to quietly prepare for a potential rebuild in the near future. The front office has a lot of decisions to make this offseason. Let's hope they do what's best and what the fans want to see.